there, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at the tax collector's booth. "Follow me," he told him, and Matthew got up and followed him. While Jesus was having dinner at Matthew's house, many tax collectors and sinners came and ate with him and his disciples. When the Pharisees saw this, they asked his disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" On hearing this, Jesus said, "It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. But go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice, for I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners." And then there's another passage in Luke chapter 19, Luke 19 verses 1 through 8. Once again, we're dealing with another tax collector. So it says here in Luke 19:1, Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. A man was there by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was wealthy. He wanted to see who Jesus was, but because he was short, he could not see over the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him, since Jesus was coming that way. When Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said to him, "Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today." So he came down and at once and welcomed him gladly. All the people saw this and began to mutter, "He has gone to be the guest of a sinner." But Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, "Look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor, and if I have cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount." Matthew was a tax collector. And if you didn't know this, in that culture, tax collectors were despised, because they were their own people who they felt betrayed them to collect the taxes for the Romans, because they were under Roman rule. And so it was like, bro, why would you do this to us? The tax collector had to assess how much money you had, and based on your earnings would tell you you owe this much in Roman tax. And so if you were a poor fisherman who was struggling to make it, and one of your own says, how much have you caught today? "Well, I only pulled in a small haul. Actually, I saw you pull 3 hauls up this morning before everybody else got out. You were doing it very early in the morning, and so I saw it, so I'm going to set you tax on 3 loads of fish." Like, come on, dude. You traitor. So he was despised. And you notice that when the teachers of the law, the Pharisees, confronted him, he said, "Why does your teacher eat with collectors?" It wasn't bad enough that they were collecting tax. They viewed them lower than the sinners. Like, you got your sinners over here, but then if you're a tax collector, you're an extra special kind of sinner. And Zacchaeus wasn't just a tax collector, he was a chief tax collector. So he oversaw the other tax collectors, and there was a common practice where they would skim a little bit. It was probably the first pyramid scheme. You go and recruit tax collectors, and as they collect tax, give me a little bit of what you've got. So he makes a little bit off the top of everybody. And he was despised. But this was what was interesting. Jesus didn't hesitate to tell them to follow him. I mean, he asked Matthew, "Follow me." And he says, Zacchaeus didn't even give him a choice. He said, "We're going to your house. You don't have a choice." But this is interesting what Jesus says to Zacchaeus in response. He says, "Today salvation has come to this house." Both men found a new identity and a new purpose within the family of God, despite their questionable past. We know that as Matthew continued to travel with Jesus, one of his disciples, that he continued to struggle with this and wrestle with this. Now we're going to turn to John chapter 4. I'm going to look at verses 15 through 26. John 4, starting in verse 15. We know this account commonly as the woman at the well. So let me paint it for you. So Jesus and his bros are traveling, and they didn't have a car. If they did, it would have been a Honda, because it says they were all in one accord. Come on now. All right. So they decide it's easier to go through Samaria, right? Now here's the thing. Back in that culture, you had your sinners, you had your tax collectors, and then you had Samaritans. Samaritans were down here. They were even lower, okay? They weren't even fully viewed as people